The Tupolev Tu-22M is a supersonic, variable sweep-wing, long-range strategic and maritime strike bomber developed by the Tupolev Design Bureau. According to some sources, the bomber was believed to be designated Tu-26 at one time. During the Cold War, the Tu-22M was operated by the Soviet Air Force in a strategic bombing role, and by the Soviet Naval Aviation in a long-range maritime anti-shipping role. Significant numbers remain in service with the Russian Air Force, and as of 2014 more than 102-22 megaseconds are in use. Development. In 1962, with the introduction of the Tu-22, it became increasingly clear that the aircraft was considerably inadequate in its role as a bomber. In addition to widespread unserviceability and maintenance issues, the Tu-22's handling characteristics proved to be dangerous. Its landing speed was some 100 km/h greater than previous bombers, and it had a tendency to pitch up and strike its tail upon landing. It was difficult to fly, and had poor all-round visibility. In 1962, Tupolev commenced work on major update of the Tu-22. Initially, the Bureau planned to add a variable sweep-wing and operated engines into the updated design. The design was tested at Sujy's wind tunnels at Dukovsky. During this time, Sukhoi, traditionally a designer of fighter aircraft, developed the T-4, a four-engine titanium aircraft with canards. A response to the XB-70, it was to have a cruise speed of 3,200 km/h, requiring a massive research effort in order to develop the requisite technologies. Not to be outdone, Tupolev, whose expertise is with bombers, offered the Soviet Air Force a massively updated version of the Tu-22. Compared to the T-4, it was evolutionary design, and thus its appeal laid in its simplicity and low cost. However, the Soviet government was skeptical about the need to approve the development of a replacement aircraft so soon after the Tu-22 had just entered service. The Air Force and Tupolev, in order to save face with regards to the Tu-22's operational deficiencies and to stave off criticisms from the ICBM lobby, agreed to pass off the design as an update of the Tu-22 in the discussions with the government. The aircraft was designated Tu-22M, given the OKB code Aircraft 45, and an internal designation of AM. Their effort was successful as the government approved the design on the 28th of November 1967 and decreed the development of the aircraft's main weapon, the Kh-22. The T-4 itself would make its first flight in 1972, but was later cancelled. U.S. intelligence had been aware of the existence of the aircraft since 1969, and the first satellite photograph of the bomber would be taken in 1970. The existence of the aircraft was a shock to U.S. intelligence, as Nikita Khrushchev, who had been the Soviet premier up to 1964, was adamant that ICBMs would render the bomber obsolete. As in the case of its contemporaries, the MiG-23 and Su-17 projects, the advantages of variable sweep-wing seemed attractive, allowing a combination of short takeoff performance, efficient cruising, and good high-speed, low-level flight. The result was a new swing-wing aircraft named Samolet 145, derived from the Tupolev Tu-22, with some features borrowed from the abortive Tu-98. The Tu-22M was based on the Tu-22's weapon system and used its Kh-22 missile. The Tu-22M designation was used to help get approval for the bomber within the Soviet military and government system. The Tu-22M designation was used by the Soviet Union during the SALT II arms control negotiations, creating the impression that it was a modification of the Tu-22. Some suggested that the designation was deliberately deceptive, and intended to hide the Tu-22M's performance. Other sources suggest the deception was internal to make it easier to get budgets approved. According to some sources, the backfire B-C production variants were believed to be designated Tu-26 by Russia, although this is disputed by many others. The U.S. State and Defense Departments have used the Tu-22M designation for the backfire. Production of all Tu-22M variants totaled 497, including pre-production aircraft. Operational history. The two prototypes Tu-22M were delivered to Long-Range Aviation's 42nd Combat Training Center at Diaghilevo Air Base, near Ryazan, in February 1973. The aircraft began practice sorties in March. Within 20 days of the aircraft's delivery, the air and ground crew at the airbase had received the type ratings. This was helped by their earlier training at Tupolev, the Gromov Flight Research Institute and the Kazan plant. In June that year, the aircraft were demonstrated to Soviet government officials, destroying tanks and armored personnel carriers. The Tu-22M was first unveiled in 1980 during the aircraft's participation in a major Warsaw Pact exercise. During the exercise, naval Tu-22M2s conducted anti-ship operations by mining parts of the Baltic Sea to simulate an amphibious landing. The exercise was extensively covered by the press and TV media. In June 1981, 4 2-22 megaseconds were intercepted and photographed by Norwegian aircraft flying over the Norwegian Sea. The first simulated attack by the Tu-22M against a U.S. carrier battle group occurred between the 30th of September and the 1st of October 1982. 8 aircraft locked onto the task forces of US Enterprise and US Midway, which were operating in the North Pacific. They came within 120 miles of the task forces. The reaction of the U.S. Navy was thought to have been restrained during this event so as to allow the observation of the Tu-22M's tactics. The bomber also made attempts to test Japan's air defense boundary on several occasions. The Tu-22M was first used in combat in Afghanistan. It was deployed December 1987 to January 1988, during which the aircraft flew strike missions in support of the Soviet Army's attempt to relieve the Mujahideen's siege against the city of Khost. 2 squadrons of aircraft from the 185th GVBAP based at Poltava were deployed to MARYY-2 Air Base in Turkmenistan. Capable of dropping large tonnages of conventional ordnance, the aircraft bombed enemy forts, bases and material supplies. In October 1988, the aircraft was again deployed against the Mujahideen. 16 Tu-22M3s were used to provide cover to Soviet forces that were pulling out of the country. The Tu-22 megaseconds were tasked with destroying paths of access to Soviet forces, attacking enemy forces at night to prevent regrouping, and to attack incoming supplies from Iran and Pakistan. Working alongside 30 newly arrived MiG-27s, the aircraft also flew missions aimed at relieving the besieged city of Kandahar. The aircraft had its last Afghan operation in January 1989 at Saling Pass. The Tu-22M suffered from widespread maintenance issues during its service with the Soviet forces. These stemmed from poor manufacturing quality. The engines and airframes in particular had low service lives. The Air Force at one point sought to have Tupolev prosecuted for allegedly rushing the inadequate designs of the Tu-22M and the Tu-160 into service. This was compounded by the government bureaucracy, which hampered the provision of spare parts to allow the servicing of the Tu-22M. With some aircraft grounded for up to 6 months, the mission-capable rate of the aircraft in August 1991 hovered around 30 to 40%. At the time of the dissolution of the Soviet Union, 370 remained in Commonwealth of Independent States service. Production ended in 1993. The Russian Federation used the Tu-22M3 in combat in Chechnya during 1995, performing strikes near Grozny. In August 2007, the Tu-22M and the Tu-95 began conducting long-range patrolling. For the first time since 1992, the Russian military acknowledged the loss of a Tu-22 Mr. Recon aircraft to Georgian air defenses early in the 2008 South Ossetia War. One of its crew members was captured, 2 others were killed, and the crew commander, Lt. Col. Alexander Koventsov, was missing in action as late as November 2011. On Good Friday night, the 29th of March 2013, two Tu-22M3 bombers were flying in international airspace in a simulated attack on Sweden. The Swedish air defense failed to respond. Tu-22 megaseconds flew supersonic over the Baltic Sea on the 24th of March 2015. Tu-22 megaseconds approached Åland in international airspace on the 21st of May 2015. The Swedish Air Force sent 2 Saab JAS-39 Gripen fighters to mark the presence. On the 4th of July 2015, Tu-22 megaseconds approached the Swedish island of Gotland, followed by Swedish and other fighter aircraft. The Russian bombers did not enter Swedish territory. On the 17th of November 2015, as part of its air campaign in Syria, Russia used 12 Tu-22M3 bombers to hit targets in Syria, along with cruise missiles fired from the Mediterranean and Tu-95 and Tu-160 strategic bombers. From 22 until the 31st of January 2016, Tu-22M3s reportedly conducted 42 sorties in the vicinity of Deir ez-Zor city, Syria. On the morning of the 12th of July 2016, 6 Tu-22M3 bombers carried out a concentrated attack using high-explosive ammunition on Daesh targets east of Palmyra, Az-Sukna and Arak. On the 14th of July, 6 Tu-22M3 bombers that took off from the base airfields in Russia delivered another massive strike on the newly detected IS facilities in the areas east of Palmyra, as well as in Es-Sukni, Arak and the T3 oil pumping station in the province of Homs. New raids were conducted on the 21st of July, the 8th of August, the 11th of August, 14 August 2016. On the 16th of August, the bombers flew missions in Syria from a base in Iran, marking a new level of cooperation in the Russian attacks in Syria. Export. The Tupolev Company has sought export customers for the Tu-22M since 1992, with possible customers including Iran, India and the People's Republic of China, but no sales have apparently been made. Unlike the Tu-22 bomber, Tu-22 megaseconds were not exported to Middle East countries that posed a threat to the U.S. military presence in the region. During 2001, India signed a lease-to-buy contract for 4 Tu-22M aircraft for maritime reconnaissance and strike purposes. At the time, the aircraft were expected to be delivered with Raduga Kh-22 cruise missiles. In January 2013, reports emerged that China had signed a purchase agreement for the production and delivery of 36 Tu-22M3s, under the Chinese designation of H-10, with many components to be manufactured domestically in China under a technology transfer agreement with Russia and Tupolev. Sales of the Russian-built Raduga Kh-22 long-range anti-ship missile and the fleet's intended use as a maritime strike platform have also been speculated upon. Rosaboronexport has reportedly denied any sales and negotiations with China regarding the Tu-22M variants. Only 9 of the earliest Tu-22M pre-production aircraft were produced, followed by 9 more Tu-22M1 pilot production craft in 1971 and 1972. Its NATO reporting name was Backfire 8, the first major production version entering production in 1972, was the Tu-22M2, with longer wings and an extensively redesigned, area-ruled fuselage, twin NK-22 engines with F-4 Phantom-E-style intake ramps, a newer undercarriage with the main landing gear in the wing glove rather than in large pods. 211 Tu-22M2 were built from 1972 into 1983. The Tu-22M2 had a top speed of Mach 1.65 and was armed most commonly with long-range cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, typically 1 or 2 Rajuga Kh-22 anti-shipping missiles. Some Tu-22M2s were later re-equipped with more powerful Nk-23 engines and redesignated Tu-22M2E. The later Tu-22M3, which first flew in 1977, introduced into operations in 1983, had new Nk-25 engines with substantially more power, wedge-shaped intake ramps similar to the MiG-25, wings with greater maximum sweep and a recontoured nose housing a new Lenonet SPN-80 radar and Nk-45 nav attack system, which provides much improved low-altitude flight. The aerodynamic changes increased its top speed to Mach 2.05 and its range by 1/3 compared to the Tu-22M2. It has a revised tail turret with a single cannon, and provision for an internal rotary launcher for the Rajuga Kh-15 missile, similar to the American AGM-69 SRAM. It was nicknamed Troika in Russian service. 268 were built till 1993. As built, the Tu-22M included the provision for a retractable probe in the upper part of the nose for aerial refueling. The probe was reportedly removed as a result of the SALT negotiations, because with refueling it was considered an intercontinental range strategic bomber. The probe can be reinstated if needed. Several Tu-22M3s, perhaps 12, were converted to Tu-22M3 or Tu-22M to standard with Champol side-looking airborne radar and other ELINT equipment. Tu-22M3M, Tu-22M3 for RUAF with upgraded avionics and the ability to use precision air-to-surface weapons. Prior to 2020 it is planned to upgrade 32-22M3 with new hardware components and adapt it for the extended range weapons. 5 modernized aircraft entered service in 2015. Operators: Russian Air Force 93 in service as of December 2010. Russian Naval Aviation 58 in use as of December 2010. Former operators: Ukrainian Air Force, Ukrainian Naval Aviation, 1 Tu-22M3 and 1 Tu-22M2 in museums. Soviet Union, Soviet Air Force, Soviet Naval Aviation. Undisclosed operators: India, Indian Navy. Specifications: data from Frawley, Donald Wilson. General characteristics: crew 4, length 42.4 meters, wingspan spread 34.28 meters, swept 23.30 meters, height 11.05 meters. Wing area, spread 183.6 square meters, swept 175.8 square meters. Empty weight 58,000 kilograms. Loaded weight 112,000 kilograms. Max takeoff weight 124,000 kilograms, 126,400 kilograms for rocket-assisted 2-power plant. 2 times Kuznetsov NK-25 turbofans, 247.9 kilonewtons each. Fuel capacity 54,000 kilograms internally. Performance maximum speed, Mach 1.88 at altitude. Range, 6,800 kilometers. Combat radius, 2,410 kilometers with typical weapons load. Service ceiling, 13,300 meters. Rate of climb, 15 meters per second. Wing loading, 688 kilograms per square meter. Thrust weight, 0.45. Armament guns, 1 x 23mm GSH-23 cannon in remotely controlled tail turret. Hardpoints, wing and fuselage pylons and internal weapons bay with a capacity of 24,000 kilograms of, up to 3 times Kh-22 missiles in weapons bay and on wing pylons, or up to 6 times Kh-15 missiles on a Mku-6-1 rotary launcher in its bomb bay, plus 4 times Rajuga Kh-15 missiles on 2 underwing pylons for a total of 10 missiles per aircraft. Various freefall bombs 69 times Fab 250 or 8 times Fab 1500 might be typical. The Kh-55 long-range cruise missile was tested on the Tu-22M but apparently not used in service. Notable appearances in media.